Vai ficar gravado. Então, quando a gente vai colocar isso no nosso site, todos ficarão sabendo em algum momento oportuno, não é? É uma alegria quando a gente faz os nossos Labô Lectures, que foi uma ideia que o Fernando Hamed teve no começo da pandemia, de trazermos reflexões internacionais com personalidades ou com pessoas que falam sobre assuntos que nos interessam, né? Fizemos, geralmente, quase todos em língua inglesa, também fizemos alguns em português, estão todos disponíveis no aflax.com ou no nosso YouTube. No dia de hoje, estamos muito felizes porque temos uma discussão muito concreta, principalmente no grupo de antissemitismo e judaísmo. Antissemitismo e judaísmo é ótimo. Diálogos da diáspora, antissemitismo e racismo. André, esqueci o nome do grupo, mas são 18, me perdoem que às vezes eu esqueço o grupo em si. Que na realidade, muito antes dos ataques terroristas do 7 de outubro, que é em que ponto a educação para o Holocausto falhou. Porque falhou, a gente sabe, em vários momentos, não é? Tanto que a gente chegou a esse ponto com essas falhas. Então, o que precisa ser melhorado para ensinarmos ou para termos diálogos didáticos em relação à Segunda Guerra, ao Holocausto, ao antissemitismo como um todo? Sendo assim, nós tivemos a oportunidade de convidar a Marine Vannier, que é coordenadora de projetos educacionais do Auschwitz-Birkenau State Museum, além de ser educadora e guia do museu. Há um trabalho para ser guia no museu do complexo de mais de um ano para se habilitar para esse processo de guia. Então, para isso, além de vários cursos, ela tem um mestrado em gestão de projetos culturais e uma especialização em algo muito interessante, que eu não sei se existe aqui, mas que ela fez, que é Remembrance Tourism, que é turismo de memória, né? Uma especialização em turismo de memória. Sendo assim, eu agradeço a presença de todos e a gente vai fazer como todas as nossas atividades do Labô, os microfones ficam fechados. Quem tiver perguntas, colocações, dúvidas, etc., deixe no chat, aberto a todos, ou individual para mim, ou em português ou em inglês. Aí, em inglês a gente responde, em português a gente faz a tradução, tá certo? Muito obrigada, Marine. Thank you so much again for coming, and please.
Okay, so nice to meet you all first. Thank you for welcoming me during this lecture and this lab, let's say, meeting. I will begin with the presentation of our department, what we do here, for about, I think, 40-minute maximum, and then we'll have about 20 minutes, I think, for discussion, questions, whatever you would like me to clarify or explain further. So I will share my screen already, and we will begin. Okay. Do you all see it well?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So this is the picture of the International Center for Education about Auschwitz and the Holocaust. This is where we work. It's one of the buildings that was actually a part of the camp complex at the time of functioning of the camp. It was used to store some Cyclone B at some point. It was also used at some period of time for storing the belongings of the victims. We know that as well. But the building was, of course, empty after the war, and it has been progressively changed for the educational center very recently somehow, because it was officially opened in 2019, but because of COVID, it was really used actually for the last, let's say, 2-3 years. So we are very happy that we have this structure nowadays, because we are welcoming a lot of different groups from all over the world, but also classes of students, for example, and we had limited availability before. So now we have our own auditoriums, our workshop classes, and we can really properly, I would say, educate the groups that would like to know more about the place. So what we do here is that actually, we are proposing a lot of different projects, either for educators, teachers, but also researchers, college students, high school students from 14 years old and above, because we do not recommend to visit this place before 14 years old. It is too hard, we believe. So that's the policy of the museum. We've had some requests to prepare youth a bit earlier than 14 years old. It is still, happening sometimes, but this is still quite rare and peculiar because we really try to emphasize that psychologically we prefer students to be 14 and above. And we also publish or create educational materials, and I will finish my presentation actually about materials that you could enjoy and find online. So I will come back to it a bit later. Our mission mainly is really to teach about the tragedy of what happened here with the victims, about the crimes of the German Nazi regime, and here what happened with the concentration and extermination camp. But this is not only the teaching method that we have. We also like to try to connect with nowadays so that we can really learn from this place. This is not only a historical point in time. We really want to use this place and the museum and the memorial in itself to really reflect about what it means today and what can we change and how can we be responsible for our contemporary world. So we try to do more and more in our workshops, anti-discrimination, for example, activities, so that the youth and adults as well can really have an impact today, because we believe that unfortunately this place has been a lot treated just as a point in time, right? A point of history. So we do not want that to be a point of history. We want to really change or try to change the world as much as we can by learning from this place. Of course, we base most of our education on authenticity, right? We have a very important site that is really well preserved till today. So we really want to learn from it to understand hatred, to understand how anti-Semitism is still here today and was very strong at the time, and how all this can result in a genocide. So this is really the core of our education here. The structure in itself of the educational center is an entire part of the museum, right? This is completely included to the museum, but we function with just a little bit of a different structure in itself, but we are a complete part of the museum. And we have different departments in our center. So the educational projects, which I'm a part of, but not only, we also have visitor services. So any person coming to the museum is of course linked to the educational part, right, of the place. So the visitor center is a part of our department, or of our structure. We also have the methodology of guiding. So this is a department that is training the guides. So for example, I just became a guide this year. This is something I do outside of my full-time job as educational project coordinator. So we have a whole department that is training the guides, because we want them to really be able to teach and tell the story the way it should be, right? So as objectively as possible, as real as possible, without having, outside sometimes outside guide that could be guiding. This is not possible. So we really have our own historians training us and preparing us for being the most accurate possible for the visitors, and understanding our visitors as well, of course. We also have the volunteer bureau. So that's something I think that is very important, because you can also take part in this place, in this museum, by giving of your time if you want to, if you have special skills or not. Anything that you would like to help the museum with, it is actually usually very possible. I will come back later a bit about that. But we also have exhibitions in the whole structure. So we have the main exhibitions, but also some temporary exhibitions. And this is, of course, a big part of the museum education in itself. And we do have e-learning and the library. So the e-learning part is very important, because not everyone can come here, right? So we like to be able to also give access to other resources online, so that everyone can learn without necessarily being here. So it can be something before, after, and, available for everyone interested to learn more about the place. And finally, we have as well, of course, the library. So on-site people can come, researchers can come and work here and find, special publications that are, we hope, covering most of, the publications about Holocaust education in general in our museum. So educational projects in itself, so our department, is really diverse, actually. So we say that we are, working with college students and high schoolers, but also teachers and different professions. So when I say that, we have a lot of different projects, maybe I will give you more examples that will be clearer and easier to understand. So, for example, if I go back to my projects that I had mainly this year, for example, in May, usually it is during that period of time, we are welcoming some students from the University of British Columbia in Canada. So they're usually coming for 10 days because they're working on their own, subjects, and they like to learn from us. So they're coming, and we are giving them a 10 days, seminar course meeting with the historians, but also going, for example, to preservation labs to understand how is the museum and memorial working. And they also have, of course, the historical knowledge, right? Or like a workshop. So it's a mix of a lot of things to try to understand the memorial site, but also learning from history, or like from the facts of what happened here. We also have international academies, so open to everyone who would like to join, to usually come for a week and learn as well from this place, but also from other memorial sites that we're collaborating with, in the region or in the area, because we're not the only place as well. We like to combine different institutions and learn from different methods of, working, or different places in general. But we also do work, for example, with journalists. So in October, I will be welcoming some journalists, like from all over the world, who are either working with the topic or would like to work with the topic and would like to enter simply this sphere that needs to communicate as well about the place and about Holocaust education in general, right? So journalists have a lot of also power in their hands. So when they can, spread also the knowledge about what is happening in memorial sites, for us, it's very important to be able to have a dialogue with them. So we have a whole press office here at the museum that is really trying to also connect, of course, education, but also spreading, the new methods, new new events that are happening, right, in the Holocaust field, education in general. We also have, for example, one of my colleagues, I think it's a very important project to talk about. One of my colleagues is going, for example, to prisons, and he's going with some of my Polish-speaking colleagues. They're going and they're interchanging, and they're going to meet prisoners, to do workshops with them, to understand simply what happened here and what can they learn from, our workshops as well, how to behave maybe differently. But we're not only working with prisoners, we're also working with policemen, because we know that at the time of the Second World War, like simply following orders was very often used as a way of not being responsible, right, for what happened. So we try to also ask them to be critical thinkers, right? So we try to also go and meet with them, so that every aspect of the elements of society can learn basically from this place. We do not stop only with education of teachers or of youth in general. We try to touch every different civilian communities that we can really reach. But we also had, for example, this year, big project with the World Jewish Congress that was actually financing some online tours with workshops also online. And they were financing this with putting in contact different classes around the world with us, so that we could just, have this whole project online and be able to also teach this way. So here you have a few more, ideas of, the type of projects that we do, but each project with a different institution is in itself different, right? So we are, for example, as well now on Sunday, actually, I'm leaving in 2 days for France, because we're going to meet with the Maison des Yeux. It's one of the memorial site and place from where a group of children a group of Jewish children have been deported to Auschwitz. And we have an exchange with them that each year either they come to us or we go to them with teachers or with employees, for example, of our museum, to learn from, the place in itself and be able to see as well different memorial sites or different techniques or whatever they use for education. So we are, in charge of some, for example, teachers from Poland, and we are taking them there. And they come, for example, with French teachers from all over France as well. So we really do have a lot of projects. So if you want me to try to go a bit deeper about those projects, we can talk about it later if you have something in mind specifically. But another maybe last one that I can maybe suggest, because it is a very important one, is that as well, every 2 years we have international educational conference with a very different topic each time. For example, in 2019, I was working on the edition that was trying to think about how to prevent genocides and crimes against humanity today. Like, what can we do as governments, as individuals? How can we learn from it and try to prevent it from happening? But for example, next year, we're already working with my colleague on the next edition. And we would like to talk about more about memory in itself, or what is the power of memory? Is it enough to remember today in the 21st century, or should we do something more? Because we can see that literally the world is going in the wrong direction, right? The conflicts are getting closer and closer. They are in Europe already. So what can we do? Are we really learning from the past, or is there something that we're missing? Is there something that doesn't work that we have to really, dig into? So that's another topic that we are slowly talking about online, but it's something we are actively working on. If I go a bit more about now the detail of what's happening here on site, but sometimes also online, is actually our workshops or presentations. You have topics here. I think that we have new ones that are not necessarily as well covered. It's just a selection of it. We have a new one, for example, since this year, that is about perpetrators, for example, because in our main exhibition, we are not touching this subject deep enough. It's going to be in the next new exhibition, but so far that's something that needed to be covered a bit more. So those are workshops that we're actually doing with the youth most of the time, but they are also addressed to adults for some of them. And we usually use platforms online. So for example, that's why it's doable as well online. This is something that began during COVID, because we realized that how can we reach students or teachers if everything is closed, right? So that's an idea that came up at the time, but it functions so well that we keep doing it, right? We still do it here, and it's very efficient on site as well, for sure. And I can show you, for example, here, if I click, we'll see how it's going to work. I would like to show you a bit more how it looks. So for example, that's the page in itself, and groups have to, like students have to work in groups. So for example, this specific one is the one that is the most booked. So that's why I would like to present you this one. It's called History Captured in Artifacts. And we have 5 groups of students working. And they have to dig into the story of one object. So they have to dig into the biography of the person to whom this object belonged, and also the object in itself. What is it telling us? So they have like different exercise to do one after another. And the first one being, for example, what do they guess with the object when they just look at it without digging deeper, right? They just have to put themselves in the shoes of a preservator. And what would they do when they see an object like this, for example? What can they tell just by looking at it? So that's one of the first things that they have to do. And then once they already take some time to respond, or to at least think about these questions, they actually have access to more information about the objects, right? For example, the biography of the man the luggage belonged to. And then they also can read a bit more about the object in itself. What do we know about it in our collections, and so on. And then they have to present their research, or the information that for them is the most important to the rest of the group. So what is important for us in this activity in itself is that we are not the ones, giving them the knowledge. They have to be the ones looking for it and taking, let's say, power over this knowledge, right? It is not like the teacher knows it all and is going to tell them what to do. It's going to be, they are, the ones active and the one taking part into their knowledge. And they are the ones also using, this knowledge for peer education, right? They are the ones presenting the others their finds or their findings. And they are also listening to others, right? What the others found and how to share with each other. That's for us very important, because we realized that they actually remember better when they are the ones looking for information and teaching others what they found, right? So it's proven to be very efficient, which is why that's a method that we're repeating very often, at least in the workshops. But we also have, for example, another methodology, a little bit different, where they actually have to create their own exhibition. So, for example, in 1.5 hours, they receive different material. Of course, it's not, from scratch. They do have some material, but they have to choose what is the most important for them as well, once again, to present the group, and they have to create some sort of posters or, some presentation, but like, physical presentation. And then they go through the exhibition all together, presenting their own also choice and decisions and why. So that's something we try to do a lot, and we also do it in different languages as much as possible. It works really well for the Polish, English, and German groups so far. But it's I think we need to maybe put the word out even more. That's maybe what is a bit lacking so far, is that we still need to work on the communication, probably, of the availability of those workshops. If I now go back maybe more to the visitors in themselves, right? Maybe some information that might be interesting to you, because COVID was a very hard moment for all of us, right? And since then, we are trying to go back, right, to the let's say, level of education, or welcoming as many visitors as possible, like before, because we see that there's a growing interest even more in this place, in our memorial site. So this year, compared to 2023, we know that this year we are going to be close to 2 million visitors again. Just before COVID, we were at 2,300,000 visitors. So probably this year we will be reaching about 2 million again. This is a huge increase since COVID, because already from 2023 it was 41% up. It was really like harsh moment even for our director to realize during COVID that this place could be closed, actually, that it never happened since the opening of the museum. And he even was worried, and he really told us it was a question of 6 months. If COVID had lasted a bit 6 months more, we might have been gone to bankruptcy. So it was a very stressful time for him, for the place in itself. So we're very happy that we were able to open again and to welcome visitors again, simply because we really believe, right, that this place has to be visited. So now currently we have 300, a bit more than 300 guides guiding in the museum in 20 languages, of which Portuguese is available. So we do have as much as possible. Of course, with some languages, it is a bit harder because we do not necessarily have guides, really living here, right, all the time, or for all the languages, of course. But we are managing to cover most of the languages asked by the visitors. Sometimes, of course, there are translators coming as well with the groups if we do not have the language covered. But we do have visitors from all over the world. So most of the languages are for sure needed and tried to be covered. Through the educational projects and study visits that I talked a bit more before, we have above 20,000 individuals coming, so participants coming for these in-depth educational activities. So it's sometimes simply, for example, a workshop before a tour, or a visit, and then a visit, and for example, they go, or sometimes a workshop before, a visit, and then a workshop after. So sometimes this is what we call a study visit as well. It doesn't have to be a whole week seminar long, otherwise we wouldn't be able to welcome 20,000 participants, because we are a team of about 10 project coordinators. So we wouldn't be able to do always, 1 week seminars, and not every class is also able to come for longer, or, groups of professionals. So we do have sometimes a 1-day study visit, 2 days that are a bit in-depth education. Still, through 2023, over 900 educational activities have been realized, or implemented through the years. So we're trying to do as much as we can, once again, depending on the needs as well of different institutions and classes, and every person asking us to work with them. But what is new, and that's maybe the connection, of course, to COVID as well, is that realizing that the museum was at risk of closure and was closed for a long time, we realized that this place was not accessible for everyone. So not only when we're open, but also, for example, when I think about all of you right now being in Brazil, this is not easy, right? To come to Europe, to come to visit this memorial site, but probably you would like also to learn from it, maybe you have this chance to maybe see it or be part of it. So the new thing is the online guided tour, but that's a live guided tour. So we do have this importance of having a contact from human to human. It has been a very important choice from the survivors. They were the first ones to set up the museum here. And they've always said that they wanted the story of this place to be told from human to human, just to keep this contact, right? So this is something we still do today. And thanks to this online tour, we also wanted to keep this human contact. It was not easy to think about the whole procedure, but they wanted to keep it as a core of the decision as well, not to have an audio guide or not to have a pre-recorded visit, but really to be able to adapt as well, maybe to the group, to their different questions and needs. So the online tour is actually usually 2 hours. So the standard tour on site, to give you a comparison maybe point, is about 3.5 hours when we're here with the group. So Auschwitz and then Birkenau. So altogether it's 3.5 hours. And the online tour is about roughly 2 hours, for the simple reason that we do not go to the same buildings, in the sense that we are able, through the application that has been created specifically for the live guided tour, the guide is able to show you on the screen when you're looking at the tour in itself. They are able to show you historical documents, testimonies, things that we do not have here in the main exhibition, meaning the testimonies, for example. So it allows to give a little bit of a different tour, with, of course, probably still the most of the same knowledge, but in a different form that prevents from, going group after group inside, because it is not easy to go inside, have all the background noise, all the groups and people walking around you. So that's the strength of this tool, is that it shows you online the documents directly, straight away. And then the guide is able to also show you the inside of blocks that are not open to visitors when they're here, simply for preservation reason, right? So we cannot have like thousands of visitors entering those buildings. So we do have this chance that at least we can show it online with the guide. It also allows this online guided tour to show Auschwitz in Auschwitz and Birkenau in Birkenau, because right now, usually during the main exhibition, here on site, we do have to speak about Birkenau in Auschwitz a little bit, because the material, educational material and exhibition are in Auschwitz. So this online guided tour is very efficient. It is also possible, as I said, to just reach a bigger group of of visitors or people wanting to know about this place. We're also thinking about people who maybe physically cannot come here, right? We do not have the easiest memorial site. It is not easy to go around in a wheelchair, for example, or go up the stairs and so on, because those are authentic buildings. So this is really a tool that has been created to be more accessible. But we also like to emphasize that this is not replacing a visit here, in a sense that it can be completing. The two tours are not, one is not canceling the other. It is to be accessible, but not only to exactly replace it. Thanks to, some partners, of course, it has been possible. For example, Orange came and really developed as well the internet, connection and network, because we need very stable connection to have a good quality. And we have Israeli companies that developed the app in itself during COVID, COVID times. So we're really thankful for them to have contacted us. It allowed at least to reach further into the world, simply. If I go back to the volunteer bureau, so we have two types of volunteering. We do have like on-site volunteering, when we have groups coming here giving a lot of their time, either for a few weeks, a few months, it happens. But this is not the only way that you can volunteer. You can also do distance volunteering. So, for example, I actually began coming here to the museum as a volunteer. That's how I came during my studies. I was 6 months months, intern here. I gave a bit of my time to different departments. I was in the preservation department, in the exhibition department, and when I was distant from the museum, I was actually working for the archive department, because I received a video testimony that I was able to transcribe first, so from French to French, and then to translate to English. So this is something I did, outside of the museum grounds, and they are in constant need, of either translations or help, with something that maybe, I'm guessing, for example, we do not have Portuguese workers, right? So we might have a need, maybe we have some material, I don't know, from survivors that we still cannot use today because we do not speak Portuguese, right? I don't know exactly what is in our archives that we're not using, of course, but maybe there is a need, right? So any language skills that you might have that you might help with, I know that the museum is always in need. There's not, I think, a moment when we're really like saying that, no, there's nothing more we can do. There's always something to do, right? So if you would like to, you can always contact as I was mentioning to Andrea, Katarzyna Marczak, so you will be able to probably share the contact with everyone. I know that we are also extremely busy. I mean, for sure, Katarzyna is extremely, how to say, requested also for volunteering. So it might take some time. I'm not saying that you will have, necessarily, for example, a project the next month, but at least you can, of course, contact her and see what is doable if that's something that you're willing to do. When it comes to exhibition, I would just like to add maybe that we are working on replacing the main exhibition, because the one we have right now that we're using dates back from the 50s. So it is still very, of course, useful, very accurate, but we would like to add maybe simply other knowledge. Like I was saying, the perpetrators were not covered so far. So it was, a need to replace it. It's going to take a few years, of course, to change as well, once again, the main exhibition physically, I mean, to put it in place. But this is something that is in the process already. We're working actively on it, but not me personally, but the museum is working on it. But we also do have traveling exhibitions. So we have like roll-ups, for example, of exhibitions that are, sent in bags, simply rolled up bags. And we're able to send it basically, to my understanding, worldwide, right? We just need to know who's knitting it, how can it be sent, and so on. But the exhibition department is really, dealing with this. They're available, and they can also send the exhibitions that we have worldwide. That's something that we do as well. You might have heard of another exhibition. So it's Auschwitz, not so long ago, not so far away. It was for a long time, at least in North America. I know it's traveling, changing cities after a few months. It's going to be going on, I think, for years and years to come. It has been created in partnership with the Museu. So it's a Spanish company that came up with the idea first, and they implemented it. We were working with them, but they are the ones, also in charge of making the exhibition travel in general. And it's a huge success as well. It has been seen, I think, since it began a few years ago. It has been seen almost already outside of here, right, by 2 million people soon. So that's what the director told us recently. And this is very important because it is showing also authentic artifacts, right? They have like artifacts from our collections, a few hundreds, and they're really able to go also, right, to people, making the knowledge of this place and their objects a bit more accessible again. And the very last part of my presentation, but I think maybe the one that you will also need very much probably, are the online resources. I'm not gonna click on all of them, but I will send Andrea at least this slide with the links to it, because we know that our website is not the most easy to navigate. So I will send you the link so that you can straight away find information. But for example, if I click on the first one, so the online lessons, there is a whole e-learning section with topics that have been covered. So for example, the main lesson, this one, the first one, Auschwitz concentration and extermination camp, is the general lesson about the place. And this is available in Portuguese. So this is also maybe something you can use either. Personally, I do not know if you're teaching as well, but do not hesitate to use. This is open source resources, right? So for your own knowledge as well, there are very, in-depth topics that have been covered. To be very honest with you, this is a knowledge and a resource that we use as guides as well, right? To train ourselves to become guides. This is something we have to also learn and, remember, of course. So this is really like I would even say this is more actually for teachers and experts than students, because sometimes it's a very extensive lesson. So this is really something you can use to inspire yourself, maybe to use, if you have a need in your classes or for whatever other purpose. But you can see we have even art at Auschwitz that is being covered, because we had art created here illegally and illegally. There's like plenty of different topics, right? Like a Christian clergy and religious life as well, for example, in Auschwitz. But different topics, like I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can see that they are quite extensive. And they are also the topics that we do not necessarily have time to cover during the standard tour. So this is know that there's so many complex, individual stories or topics that can be actually connected to Auschwitz. We have like a lot of different topics. I will let you go through it. And if you have questions, of course, I'm also available to clarify this. But I think one of the other important, maybe modern tools that we're using are podcasts created by the press office. They are very, new topic of like a 30-40 minute conversation. This is usually a conversation between Pavel, who is, the one responsible for the podcast, and, for example, our historians or the person invited to talk about the specific topic covered. So we do have, for example, information about literature as well, because I've heard that you are very much involved with literature in your group. So there is also some type of conversation podcast about what are the good examples of literature about the history of Auschwitz, but what is also to avoid. What are the fictions that are supposedly based on historical facts but are actually not checked, and that we could have, for example, not changed, but that we have a lot of authors who are just not contacting us, and we do have knowledge that we could have, helped them with, and they sometimes, skip the part of checking the knowledge or go a bit further to try to confirm or not the data found for the books and so on. So you will see different also topics here that are covered. And this is also, I think it's been, appreciated as well for having another form of education, once again, a bit more like a discussion, a different way of also using another sense, right? We do not only read, we can also listen and so on. So we try to reach and cover also the different methods of learning, of different preferences of participants simply. We do have, I will maybe the last maybe element I would like to present to you is the latest edition. It has been published, I think, online, at least the news a week ago. And this is something, oops, I don't know if it's working. Okay, it's working. This is something that we worked on as the educational projects coordinators, educators. It's a lesson that was actually, it's 2 lessons. It's a preparatory and summary lesson for a visit to the memorial. So we came up with this because we see that a lot of students, or at least like high schoolers, are not necessarily prepared sometimes by the teachers to come to such a place. So we thought that it was needed to create a 45-minute lesson that can be used so before the lesson to prepare the students to understand a bit better why they're coming here, why is it important for them to do so, because sometimes it's just a mandatory part of their curricula, right? And we want them to really know why they're coming here and why it's so important, or at least for them to think about it a bit more, sorry. And the first preparatory material, at least the lesson, focuses mainly on the groups of victims. So I will once again let you go through it if you would like to, but I would like to show you just the four group of victims. So we talk about the four main groups that have been targeted here, so that they understand also the different peculiarities of these groups, right? So we have a group usually working with Jewish victims, one with Polish victims, one with the Roma and Sinti victims, and the last one with the Soviet prisoners of war. So the preparatory lesson focuses on that, on the victims, and on what can they learn from the testimonies of the victims, because the material in itself, so that's the worksheet, they receive some questions and material then, so to be, cut and, distributed to the group. They have a short description about the group that has been targeted, and then they have testimonies. And from those testimonies, what can they learn? What can they get from the survivors or like the victims themselves, right? So this is what we prepared based on our material, and we also use pictures in itself, so that it's a bit, a bit different in the way that they have to work, not only reading, but also pictures. What can they, learn from it? And it's just also brings them closer to the victims. But it's important for us that they understand individually who were these people, right? Because sometimes we just talk in numbers, right? We just talk about dates, facts, but we want them to understand who were they, right? That's for us the most important as well. And then the summary lesson in itself is about survivors and the message that they would like to use to remember and to take with them after a visit of Auschwitz, for example. So this is based on some survivors that gave speeches during, for example, the anniversary of liberation. And we are based, on this text, these speeches, to learn from it. So these are like sets of answers. But you can see, for example, the worksheet, how it looks like. So like we are asking them usually 2 questions, and they have to think about it. So what was the person meaning in their words? Who was this survivor, the biography in itself? And they have to just think about it, right? Think about what they learned from the place they visited, and, what can they do with this knowledge nowadays? Okay, I think I've already spoken quite extensely about a lot of different aspects. I hope it was clear, not to maybe I'll just yeah, okay. I'll stay maybe on the page of the material in itself. And I would like now to invite you to ask me questions, if it's possible now.
Of course, of course. Thank you so much, Marine. It was great. And there are many things that we can talk about now, but well, millions of things, to be honest with you. But first of all, I would like you to tell us, because sometimes people don't have, I think most of the times, people don't have the idea of the dimension of the site. The camp, what is the camp? They think it's like a small place that just people went, and they don't have any idea how it was built, the size, the number of buildings, and how it was built just for other people not to have any kind of connection, and the neighbors wouldn't know what was going on there. Can you tell us a little bit about the infrastructure?
So when we talk about Auschwitz in itself, at least for the memorial site that is encompassed here, right? We have Auschwitz in itself, so the main camp where you have this Arbeit macht frei famous entrance gate, right?
Sure.
And this is separated from Birkenau by about 3 kilometers. And in Birkenau, you have the biggest camp in itself, where you have, the main, this big building where we know maybe from movies or documentaries, where the train is entering the main ramp. This is Birkenau. This is what we talk when we talk about at least the extermination area, the extermination part. This was Birkenau. This is where most of the transports have been brought, right? If I give you like spatial numbers, I don't know, we'll see if it's speaking to you, but Auschwitz is about 20 hectares. Birkenau is 170. So
20
this is
hectares
much
e
bigger.
107 em português, Yes. Okay. Yeah.
So this is a big place, right? Birkenau is much bigger when we bring visitors to the both places, because that's what we do. They're really impressed by the size of Birkenau after seeing Auschwitz.
Mhm.
Auschwitz in itself, it's about 28 buildings, like the brick buildings that you might have seen. At least we've seen on the first page. If I go
Yes,
back, I don't know if I can go back. I don't know why it's not working.
yes,
This, yeah, this one, for example, here in the back, you can see, right, some of the buildings. Um, yes, and this is like Auschwitz, right, with the 28 brick buildings in the back. And Birkenau in itself, it was about 300 when it was, functioning. Of course, now we have a lot of let's say, traces of the buildings. They're not standing anymore. Some part of the bricks building are, but those who were wooden have been dismantled in general after the war, just after the war.
Mhm.
So, and this place was encompassing 300 buildings in itself. So it's much bigger place, yeah.
Much bigger. Thank you. There is a person here that wants to know about the guided tour. I'm going to say something in Portuguese. Eu recomendo demais o live guided tour. I really, really do recommend the live guided tour because it's such an amazing opportunity, as you said, that not everybody can go to the site. But is it all the languages that, because there are so many guides and many languages, is it possible to schedule a live guided tour in Portuguese, Marine? Do you know?
So I don't know if all the languages are covered yet.
Yes.
I know that you can book the online tour on the Visit Auschwitz,
Yes.
visit.auschwitz,
I've already, yeah, I've already put here the website and everything.
yeah, and when you go to the, booking part, you have this, online tours. And then when you go there, if you would like to book a tour, you should be able there to see the languages that are actually on, at least at the moment. I know for sure there is English, right? That's one thing for
Yeah.
sure. For Portuguese, I cannot confirm, so I prefer not to guarantee it. But I would say if, for example, you would like to organize an online tour for a group already, not as an individual, but as a group, I'm guessing that yes, it is doable. I think that hopefully, I know that not all the guides are forced to do it online, because I know that not everyone is comfortable with
Course.
using the interface. Is quite new still, right? So we're adapting. But I don't know. You would have to ask if the Portuguese guides are already ready to make it available for everyone in every language we have, right?
Perfect.
So yes.
Yeah. I'm going to send. Eu vou mandar para todo mundo, gente, as informações, e-mail da Marina. Não se preocupem que depois eu mando todas as informações. Everybody's thanking you so much for your impressive presentation, for everything. There's a very curious and interesting question here, Marine, that if there is any kind of mental health support to visitors, because if there are any records, or if you have already, of course, you are a tour guide now, because I think it's, of course, it's one of the most emotional places on earth, and people sometimes do have mental breakdowns or something like that during the visit or after the visit. Do you know something related? Of course, you know, but can you tell us something related about this mental health support?
So I would say no, unfortunately, we do not have mental health support. At least, even if we do not maybe only cover the visitors in itself, I would say for the employees in themselves or the guides, we do not have necessarily a system put in place. I know that there has been some trainings at some point with psychologists coming.
Yes.
But this is not something on a regular basis. This is not something that is, happening for every new batch of guides, right? So, for example, I didn't go through the psychological mental support during the training of the guides. In my opinion, this is lacking. Yes, this is something we are talking about, at least in some of our colleagues. And hopefully, yes, it will evolve. I hope so. For the visitors, of course, each guide is conscious that this can happen, right?
Course.
We are personally preparing ourselves in need, if someone is in need to talk about it, or if, for example, because we do have sometimes teenagers in a group. that are just coming with their parents, or sometimes even kids that are younger than what is like recommended, because of course we cannot say no to
Yeah.
visitors. If they want to come with their children, they are coming with their children. So we are personally deciding if we are going to skip some information not to shock the
Perfect.
youngest, for
Yes.
example, right? So I would say each guide is aware of it. I hope so, at least, that they have this, a sensitivity to decide what is, to be done or not. But there's not, like, I would say, a general rule. It's more of a personal decision.
And I think it's much better than this, because everybody is prepared, or the guides. Of course, we have our personal limits and our personal preparations and sensitivities to deal with that. And you know which one, when you see them face to face, if they need help or if they don't need help. I think it's,
Yes,
of course.
yeah.
One of the presentations that the last part, Marine, that you said about, I think it's awareness. It's like Auschwitz did not fall suddenly from the sky.
Yes.
And
yes.
I think it's one of the most important topics that we have to understand today. So in relation to the first part of your presentation that you said, of course, what happened during the first, I don't know, the first half of the 20th century, the last part of the 19th century, that we have to deal with it now. It did not fall from the sky. The crematoriums did not fall from the sky. How is how does this work? How do you manage this?
So what do we do with at least the workshops, when either is the one, Auschwitz did not fall from the sky, or maybe the one connected as well to this would be those shall not be indifferent.
Yes.
Those are the topics that we're using, in the sense that we are beginning always showing how, the years or the decades before Auschwitz led to Auschwitz, right? And what can we learn from those mechanisms, right? Because we always tell them that Auschwitz, when it happened or when the war started, it's already too late somehow. So we have to react before. And the reason why I mentioned this other workshop called Those Shall Not Be Indifferent is because from the survivors, we are asked to emphasize on this part of education, that indifference is extremely powerful, right? We believe that, I did nothing wrong, I just, didn't take part. But we said that Auschwitz wouldn't have happened with the majority being silent, or majority letting things happen, right? So even today, I don't know if if you're following the news or the politics, even in Germany, right? We do hear nowadays coming back, like, oh, not everyone was Nazi, right? So we know that not every German was, but still, once again, the indifferent part of things, right? We are trying to say that we have power in our hands, and when we stay silent, this is a decision as well, right? This is taking position somehow. So what we do is that we always begin from the historical facts and what we know, what happened with Auschwitz and before Auschwitz, and we try to, as I said, to deconstruct the mechanisms. So we always, for example, in this workshop about anti-discrimination, we always talk about the power of words. So we use, for example, the pyramid of Gordon Allport. I don't know if you know about this this man who created the pyramid that led to genocide. And we talk about the different steps. So the very first one being language. So, the jokes that we do that are, oh, yeah, it's funny, it's just a joke, but it always begins with, something being accepted by a majority. And then it's becoming, oh, it's okay, it's normal, everyone says that, right? So we try to tell the youth that it begins with words, and that's in your hands. And that's what we say, that the genocide begins with words. So if we do not want to go too far, so genocide being, of course, the last step, and this is way too late, we tell them that you can begin before, at the very first level of the pyramid. So we talk about words, and then we usually go up with them talking about stereotypes, prejudice, and how then it leads to physical attacks, and so on and so on. And that it's a process, as we said, that lasts years before being or becoming normal, right? So we are always studying what happened at the time, and so that we don't want them to compare, but we want them to understand what they're doing in their everyday life that could actually maybe be hurtful or harmful, that they're not really aware of, or that they don't think is so important. And actually it is important. So we try to raise awareness this way.
Yeah, I think it's one of the most important things. And we have been dealing a lot with this in our Brazilian reality as well, concerned concerning anti-Semitism, because that's what we say. Words are the first thing. So pay attention to what you say about the Jews and pay attention to what you say about other people. That's it. There's a question here that is very, very interesting, and I've already I've written before about deniers, Holocaust deniers sometimes. I mean, and the question is, do you deal with people that are sometimes improper or skeptical about Auschwitz history? Have you faced that?
So me as a guide, no, I cannot say that so far. I've had, you know, someone very, let's say, or very clearly, as you say, maybe denying something. But I know that my colleagues are saying that sometimes, yes, you have someone asking very strange questions and they know that this is, you know, already something not very normal. But we do have historians who actually are during the training for the guides, for example, we have a whole part about deniers and what is denying, right? So sometimes
Yeah.
it's not saying that it never happened. So that's the last, you know, stage of the spectrum of denying, right? But sometimes it's also as well, once again, making jokes about, you know, I don't know, Hitler in itself, or, you know, trying to say, oh yeah, but he liked animals, or like, you know, somehow, how to say,
I think,
diminishing,
yeah,
right?
diminishing the, yeah.
So we see that denying can have different forms. And that's actually very interesting because we would say, you know, denying is black or white, but no, actually, it can be just minimizing, you know, the tragedy in itself, and that's already somehow denying. So we do know about the biggest deniers, you know, and their theories, sorry,
Yeah.
because if someone comes and says, yeah, but I've read that it was impossible to kill so many people at once, for example, you know,
Yes.
someone could
That's
have,
the
you
most
know,
common thing.
read
Yeah.
something. Yes, so we are prepared to answer this type of statement, right? We do know how to say technically, you know, in details why this is how it is, right? So,
Yes, perfect.
so we're
Perfect.
prepared for it, but I wouldn't say that I hear a lot of deniers coming here. No.
Yeah, because they
Or
don't
I
go.
did well. Yeah.
Because they don't go. Because they of course they don't want to face the truth, and they are going to stay behind the cameras and behind their computers and say that they don't believe that, or it was impossible to happen, because they don't want to know the truth. Their
Yeah.
truth is enough. Yeah,
Yes.
that's what we know.
We do have way more, maybe, I wouldn't say, yeah, maybe I can say almost aggression rather online. Sometimes when we post something on the social media, you can have someone reacting and, you know, simply commenting in a bad way, I would say, right? So yes, we do have but more activity online, I would say, than people coming on site and really showing what they think. Yeah.
There is a question about if there is any testimony or records from Auschwitz survivors who lived in Brazil, and yes, there are. Yes, Marine. Yeah.
For sure, there are. I don't have names like that coming,
Of
you know,
course.
coming up in my mind, but I would say yes. I mean, we would have to ask the archives, of course,
Yeah.
to really look for some material. But I would say yes, and maybe not in our archives, but for sure there has to be somewhere, you know, in some archives, in museums and memorial sites, maybe even in Brazil, right? Maybe there is a record
There are
of,
many. Yeah.
you know, testimonies.
Yes,
Yes.
and even on the website, Figgy, that's the one that asked the question, you can put their names and then you can find them online. Yes.
The testimonies, not really yet. I know that we're working on a
Okay.
database to have like an online access, you know, with the documents, with the information about victims and survivors, maybe. But this is a process that lasts for already a few years. Uh, the reason being that the archive department do not want to rush it because they know that once it's out, they cannot really change it all completely, right? So they want to do it right the first time. So it's been lasting really for years already. I think they're working on it for the last 20 years. And that's something they would like to release, you know, in the coming years. I hope like a few, like 2, 3, I've talked, you know, with some of the digitalizing departments, you know, about that. Most of the materials I know have been digitalized. And now the reason is the delay or like, you know, the extra time needed is for really putting the platform in the best way possible, right?
Perfect. Yeah, yeah. So Dani is saying, amazing presentation. Thank you. So glad to hear. Thank you. Very interesting. So Marine, I would like to thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you so much for being with us today. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
You're very welcome. I hope that it was, yeah, not too mass of
No,
information
no,
because we
and
do have a
everybody,
lot.
we
But
have, but everybody can log and everybody can visit the website, so it's fantastic. So I think it was great. Thank you so much.
you're welcome. Do you still have, the links of the educational material, Andrea, or do you need me
Yes, I
to
do.
send you?
Yes, I
Okay.
do. So I'm
Okay.
going to send them. Okay.
Okay, because just the PDF of the preparatory and summary lesson are new, and this I added, but I think you already sent the link of the PDF,
I've
yes?
already sent them. If I have already sent them, I'm going to check again, but I think I have everything.
Okay, great. If you don't, anyway, you can
I'm
contact
going
me,
to ask
and
you.
you know
Okay.
that, so
Yes, yes.
so we're
Thank
available.
you. Thank you.
Thank you, and have
Bye
a lovely
bye.
day. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Tchau, tchau, gente. Até a próxima.